Ever heard the name Daryl Purpose? If not, you're about to discover one of the most cunning and controversial card counters in modern history. His legend is as enticing as any casino jackpot. A teenage runaway, a genius at blackjack, and a target for mob-backed casinos desperate to stop him. Yet, even those who thought they knew his story never realized just how deep the rabbit hole truly went. Blackjack might seem like a straightforward game. Add up the right cards, beat the dealer, and walk away richer than you arrived. But behind the neon glow and clinking chips, there's a secretive world of advantage players who've practically rewritten the rules. And at the center of this underground scene stood one quiet young man who, against all odds, gained the upper hand against the mob, the law, and the entire casino industry. Stick around, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see gambling forever. Unlikely origins. Daryl's story begins on a dusty road, somewhere between the home he fled as a teenager and the bright lights of Las Vegas. With just a few bucks in his pocket and no clue where life would take him, he was drawn to the blackjack tables by promises of fast money and the thrill of risk. For a 16-year-old who felt suffocated at home, the chaotic hum of a casino floor felt oddly like freedom. Back then, it was all about survival. Any quick hustle that could pay for a cheap motel room or a hot meal. But in a stroke of fate, he stumbled upon Ed Thorpe's Beat the Dealer, a groundbreaking manual that detailed how math-minded players could bend blackjack odds in their favor. That single book changed Daryl's entire outlook. He studied every page with near-religious devotion, discovering the hidden rhythms and patterns buried in the deck. Before long, he'd practiced counting cards with such intensity that colleagues said he could do it in his sleep. What came next was an unexpected invitation, one that would catapult him from a lone wolf gambler into a secret underground movement where major players trained quietly, refining their own brand of unstoppable blackjack domination. Daryl was about to move from betting nickels and dimes to playing for staggering sums of money, but he still had no idea just how many powerful enemies he was about to make. A secretive underground. If the public face of Las Vegas in the 1970s was glitzy showgirls and ringing slot machines, the hidden face was a different beast entirely. Beneath the stage lights, a shady network of mobsters, crooked dealers, and shady consultants operated with iron-fisted control. Ken Houston, already infamous in blackjack circles, had assembled a team of card counters so polished in their craft that ordinary casino staff scarcely believed they existed until the chips started vanishing by the tens of thousands. Daryl's sharp mind and near-instantaneous counting made him a prime recruit. He signed on as a spotter, the silent sentinel perched at the table, placing small bets and watching every card that hit the felt. When the deck heated up, meaning the odds shifted in favor of the players, Daryl used secret hand gestures to signal the big bettors lurking nearby. A scratch of the nose, a tug of the ear, each gesture meant something crucial, no words necessary. But this hush-hush operation wasn't just about signals. It also required ice-cold nerves. One slip, one misread card, one suspicious pit boss, and everything could come crashing down. And it wasn't just a matter of getting thrown out. There were far more sinister consequences lurking in the smoky backrooms. People who challenged the casinos risked more than just their bankroll. Early on, Daryl heard rumors of hush money, back-alley beatings, even vanishings that were never reported on the nightly news. Still, the allure of winning thousands in a single sitting was too strong to resist, and he plunged headfirst into the dangerous dance between skill and suspicion, risks and riches. It wasn't long before the money rolled in. Daryl's small stakes tables started racking up big profits when the big bettors swooped in at exactly the right moments. Word spread fast. The teenage runaway was unstoppable at the blackjack tables. Even Ken Houston, a hardened veteran of high-stakes play, was taken aback by Daryl's near-supernatural ability to track cards under pressure. But with money came controversy. Some said the team had inside help. Rumors floated around that pit bosses were on the take or that certain dealers were quietly paid off. Others believed Daryl's uncanny success must be tied to elaborate electronics or mind-boggling forms of cheating. The truth was simpler. Daryl had a brilliant memory and unwavering focus. Yet speculation only fed the casino's paranoia, especially in the mob-run era of Vegas. matters took a violently real turn one night when Ken Houston himself was ambushed in a back alley behind a Vegas casino. The details would remain hush-hush for decades, but whispers pointed to an orchestrated message from the people who truly ran the city. Ken's injuries were severe. Broken facial bones, a hospital stay that revealed just how far the powers that be would go to protect their profits. Daryl, seeing the man who had brought him into this world, suddenly battered and scarred, understood the warning: keep winning and you'll pay. But walking away from the kind of money he was making felt impossible. The ingenious shoe device. As the heat in Vegas intensified, Daryl and his close friend Craig came up with a risky yet innovative solution: a hidden computer system integrated into the heel of a shoe. The idea was as bold as it was brilliant. By tapping two tiny switches near his toes, one switch for each high card, the other for each low card, Daryl could register the running count. The system would then buzz if the deck was favorable, silently instructing the wearer to bet big. If it buzzed a different way, it was time to lay low. Hiding circuit boards, wires, and a battery pack inside a normal-looking shoe was an engineering marvel. To any casual observer, Daryl seemed like a regular tourist in clunky footwear. But in reality, he was effectively carrying a miniature computer that tracked each card dealt. No suspicious hand signals, no eye contact with a partner, just subtle toe taps and the occasional discreet vibration. Of course, this was a legal gray area at best. If authorities discovered the device, it could be confiscated, or worse, used as evidence of gambling fraud. But Daryl was tired of constantly looking over his shoulder, especially after seeing Ken's injuries. This new device meant more independence, fewer teammates to coordinate with, and fewer overhead costs. It was the ultimate advantage, assuming he could avoid detection. Across the pond, with Vegas casinos on high alert, Daryl decided to test his invention overseas. Europe's smaller casinos had looser protocols and, crucially, didn't share Vegas's hair-trigger suspicion of card counters. Yet there were still obstacles. In the UK, for instance, membership was mandatory, and there was a required waiting period before you could play. This forced Daryl to plan meticulously. He had to time his entrances and exits to collect winnings without spooking the staff. When he first touched down in England, he felt the same mixture of adrenaline and fear he'd felt years earlier, stepping into the smoky rooms of Vegas. But there was a crucial difference. The mob had less influence here, which meant fewer goons waiting in back alleys. That said, local authorities in places like Leicester weren't clueless. Casino staff might not suspect a computerized shoe, but they knew when a newcomer started raking in suspiciously consistent wins. Sure enough, after raking in about £10,000 in a single night, Daryl raised eyebrows. The staff whispered among themselves about a mysterious buzzing sound coming from his direction. Before long, the police arrived, demanding ID, searching for contraband, and questioning how exactly this American stranger had so thoroughly dismantled their beloved blackjack tables. Daryl tried to keep his composure. If they found the device or the extra gadgets hidden in his hotel room, he could be in serious trouble. Yet luck, or maybe skill, was on his side. The officers went through his belongings, rummaged in drawers, even prodded his guitar case. But they had no idea what they were looking at. By the end of that nerve-wracking day, Daryl walked away with his winnings intact, and his secret still hidden. Controversies, cash, and close calls. From that moment on, rumors exploded in gambling circles across Europe. Whispers circulated about a magical gambler who never seemed to lose. Speculation ranged from claims he'd sold his soul to claims that MI5 or the FBI had built a top-secret device for him. Some said he'd used blackmail to get an edge. All these theories gained traction because Daryl refused to stay in one place for long. As soon as the local management became suspicious, he'd skip to another casino or even another country, membership cards in hand. But with every fresh plane ticket and every newly minted membership, the stakes grew. All it would take was one thorough search, one savvy policeman, or one watchful competitor to expose Daryl's shoe. And if a rumor reached the wrong ears, say, a well-connected casino mogul, he might face more than a polite invitation to leave. He'd seen what had happened to Ken, and though Europe offered some distance from Vegas's darkest corners, Darryl couldn't fully escape the dangerous reputation card counters carried. At the same time, the money was life-changing. After years spent scraping by, he was now flush with cash. Lavish hotels, fine dining, nights spent celebrating in exclusive clubs. Darryl indulged in the sudden surge of success. But all of that only painted a bigger target on his back. To maintain a low profile, he began using aliases, forging documents, and even making subtle changes to his appearance. At one point, rumors circulated that he'd gotten plastic surgery. Though he always denied it, the truth was simpler. Hair dye, contact lenses, a careful shaving or growing of facial hair, and yes, a mole removal. Anything to stay one step ahead. The big wins and the Blackjack Hall of Fame. Unsurprisingly, Darryl's feats eventually earned him a spot in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. To casual fans of the game, this was an almost mythical achievement, reserved for those who'd bested the casinos in ways few believed possible. News interviews and behind-the-scenes accounts later exposed fragments of his story, some accurate, some greatly exaggerated. But the legend of Darryl Purpose only grew. People called him the uncatchable gambler, the unstoppable force, the man who revealed every weakness in the house's defenses. By this stage, the casinos weren't sitting idle. Word of a hidden electronic device circulated among the most powerful gaming interests worldwide. Security measures changed. Pit bosses started scanning for unusual lumps in shoes, employing random checks, heightening scrutiny of newly registered players. The entire industry evolved to clamp down on advantage play. As for Darryl, he simply kept adapting. He was rumored to have at least half a dozen backup plans for any given night. If a pit boss made eye contact too many times, or if staff started hovering around him, he'd fake a phone call, cash out, and vanish into the night. Even so, Darryl and his friends banked over $1 million, an astronomical sum for that era. Some insisted that figure was just the tip of the iceberg, claiming his total haul stretched into the multi-millions. The reality remains murky, partly because Darryl never liked to discuss the scope of his success. He'd always give a humble shrug and say, it was never just about the money. Of course, no one really bought that, especially not the casinos. The fallout and lasting legacy. Eventually, the party had to wind down. Casino after casino recognized his face, or at least the shape of it. With new technology surfacing in the industry, from improved surveillance cameras to computerized shuffle systems, advantage players found themselves squeezed out of easy opportunities. Darryl refused to back down, using every trick in the book to remain incognito. He changed his hair from blonde to dark brown, wore tinted glasses, even tried elaborate outfits that disguised his body shape. But there was only so far you could run. Before long, Darryl found himself banned from casinos on 6 continents, an impressive, if daunting, statistic. He had to weigh the potential risk of stepping onto a casino floor only to be recognized by security. In some cases, they'd merely toss him out. In others, he feared the old-school tactics that once battered Ken Uston into the hospital. Winding down his gambling career wasn't just about casino bans. It was about self-preservation. In the years that followed, Darryl dabbled in other ventures. Some say he worked as a gambling consultant, coaching new counters to keep the torch burning. Others claim he tried to distance himself entirely from the world of blackjack, focusing on personal